The next communication tool that we'll learn is the tool of questions. Now, questions is a very familiar tool, and we all ask questions all of the time. But not all questions are the same. Not all questions have the same uses, and not all of them yield the same results. Now, this is something that we all know, whether up here or intuitively, but let's talk about it for a bit, just to make it clear why this is important for negotiation communication. There are quite a few types of questions, but there are some big categories, and I think it's important to lay those out first. And before we lay those out, let's focus on questions that are meant to really gain us information. Okay? Because there are other types of questions that are not intended to gain us information, but just to make a point or put something out there. Like a rhetorical question is not a mode of gaining information, it's a mode of persuading or stating your own point. So let's set those aside. We're focusing on questions that are meant to gain information that we need for the purposes of our negotiation. And the three big categories are open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, and yes-no questions. Okay? What are these three and how might they be used? So, open-ended questions are questions that you ask and you do not know the answer to. Okay? To make it very clear. You have no idea what you're going to get, and you leave it to the other party to decide just what information they're going to give you. So if you ask, how do you see this project working out? That's a very open-ended question. Okay? What are your ideas for this? There's a very open-ended question. Now, of course, the answer you receive to that question will be very different than if you asked, do you agree with my idea? Right? So that's a yes-no question. The first one was an opening up, expanding the conversation question. What are your ideas for doing this? And the second type, the yes-no, was a narrowing. Do you agree with my idea? Both of these serve their purposes, of course. And it's important to differentiate between them and to use them for those proper purposes. So when we want to open up the other, when we want to get them thinking about a particular topic, when we want to hear their general thoughts about a topic, when we just want them to get used to feeling free to talk with us and sharing information, when we want to empower them, when we want to learn about what brought them to the table and what's going on in their lives and what is motivating them in this negotiation, an open-ended question is the best tool we can use. An open-ended question, it shows that we're feeling secure in this conversation, that we don't mind passing over the setting of the topic and the airtime over to them. It shows that we're interested in them. It shows that we're interested in what they have to say. So it serves all of those initial goals of empathy and relationship and trust. It also serves information-seeking purposes. When you ask an open-ended question, you don't know the answer, and you're likely to learn something from it. So if you use open-ended questions and then listen carefully to the answers, like we've been learning to listen, there's a good chance that you're going to discover things you did not know, and particularly things that you need and that will help you in this negotiation. So open-ended questions are when you want to open up the field of discussion, expand the discussion, and give the other party a voice. Closed questions are narrower questions. It's when you want the other party to focus, when you want the other party to be specific. So an example of what color car are you interested in purchasing? We're not asking what are their thoughts on cars in general, what their relationship with motor vehicles are. What we're asking them is what color car they want. Now, there might be 100 answers to this question, there might be 7 answers to this question, depending on your view of colors, but there is a limited scope of answers. What color car do you like? Well, I really like red cars, but I would be willing to take a blue car. So we asked a relatively closed question, and we received specific information as an answer. We use these when we want to help the others focus, when we want to guide them into a particular area of information that we're interested in. and when we want them to clarify. When you say red, did you mean only fire engine red, or do you like other colors, other shades of red? That's something between a yes-no question and a closed question. If we'd ask, what shades of red do you like? That's a closed question. If we ask, do you like fire engine red? That's a yes-no. So there are different degrees of narrow. As we want the other party to be more specific and to clarify more and to zoom in more on particular specific information, we'll use increasingly narrow, closed-ended questions. Finally, the last type of question is the yes-no question. The yes-no question is kind of it's a narrow form of the closed-ended question because you're narrowing them all the way down to two answers, a yes or a no. Do you want the car? Can we shake on it? These are yes-no questions, okay? Do you agree to the deal? Is delivery on the 15th okay? So we've agreed on 450, right? These are all yes-no answers, and we use them when we use them mainly for two purposes, or we can consider using them for two purposes. One is when we want to pin the other down, put them on the spot, maybe interrogate them a little, and make a pointed focus on some issue that perhaps they were trying to evade or that they're uncomfortable speaking about. That's one use. It helps us kind of drag the other party into relating to a particular issue. And the second part is when we need the other party to be either very, very specific or simply to commit. We use yes-no questions. So yes-no questions also have very powerful uses in guiding the conversation. One general use of information-seeking questions is that, to use a tennis metaphor, they hit the ball over the net to the other party. Once we've asked a question, well, generally speaking, we shouldn't try to answer it for the other party, and we would do well to sit there and listen to the other party. But in general, when we're asked a question, we're signifying to the other, okay, now I would like to get information from you. So what we're doing is we've said whatever it is we have to say, and we ask the other party whatever it is we have to ask, and we're sending the conversational ball over the net to them, and then we might listen to their answer and reflect what they've told us and process that. So that's the conversational use of the question. In batting the ball over the net, we want to be thoughtful about which corner of the other party's court we want the ball to go. Do we want to make them run for it? Do we want to make this a hard shot or an easy shot? Do we want them to hit it back to us in a certain place or not? All of these will affect the way that we hit the ball over the net. So, having exhausted that tennis metaphor, we can take a look at the various types of questions on the slide here, where we see different ways of getting at what seems to be basically the same information, but we will receive different answers and different types of that information based on the type of question that we chose to present the other with. So we choose our type of question, and our wording of the question very intentionally in order to get the particular type of response that we feel would be most helpful in this situation.